To DOGE or not to DOGE, that is the question. Whether you agree with the cuts that Musk is making or not, there still remains the question as to whether they're legal. His cuts have faced challenges from the courts, but just because a judge says something doesn't necessarily mean that it's true either. What matters is what the law says and the Constitution. And if you're looking for someone to guide you towards a constitutionally correct answer, then Rand Paul is your go-to guy in the Senate. Lately, he's been talking about invoking a legislative maneuver most people don't know about. It's called rescission. So if congressional caveats and legislative loopholes are what pump you up, then boy, oh boy, do I have some juicy stuff to tell you in the next few minutes. Rescission is simply a means by which the president can cancel previously appropriated spending. If you remember from civics class, Congress is granted certain responsibilities. Article 1, Section 9 states, quote, "No money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in the consequence of appropriations made by law." That is often referred to as the Appropriations Clause. In Article 2, Section 3, the Constitution gives the President the duty of spending approved funds. It says, quote, "He shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed." This is commonly referred to as the Take Care Clause. So Congress passes spending bills and the president implements that spending. Simple enough. But presidents don't always want to spend that money. While Trump may think he's the first and biggest of everything, I've got news for him. In 1803, Jefferson delayed spending congressionally appropriated money on gunboats. That purchase was a response to increasing tensions over the port of New Orleans. However, after Congress provided the funds, Jefferson negotiated the Louisiana Purchase, making that purchase of gunboats completely unnecessary. Presidents after Jefferson would do the same thing and withhold or delay spending of appropriated funds. People will often refer to this practice as impoundment, despite the fact that no definition exists in statute or Supreme Court case law. The understanding for impoundment was predicated on practical wisdom, being that appropriations merely set a spending limit for a particular purpose. Thus, if that purpose could be accomplished by spending less, then we might as well take advantage of that savings. After Jefferson, presidents would occasionally engage in impounding funds. Then came Nixon. He began excessively using impoundment. He abused it. It was a way for him to make an end run around Congress and not fund items that didn't fit his political agenda. During congressional hearings, lawmakers noted that by withholding funding for a program, the president could change or completely eliminate that program without directly having to veto it. Many state and local governments sued the Nixon administration over impoundment, and they regularly won on the grounds that the president did not have the authority to impound those funds in the first place. In fact, the Nixon administration appealed one of those cases to the Supreme Court. The president's practice of impoundment was also compared to a line-item veto. Now let's go down the rabbit hole here for just a second. Nearly every president since Ulysses S. Grant asked for the line-item veto. President Clinton actually managed to get it in 1996. Congress passed the law for him. He only used it 3 times, though. And groups affected by Clinton's cuts ended up suing his administration. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. In a 6-3 ruling, the court ruled that the line-item veto was unconstitutional because it allowed the president to single-handedly amend or repeal parts of law. The decision also noted that since the Constitution doesn't mention a line-item veto, that it is viewed as, quote, an express prohibition. So why do I bring any of this up in the first place? Well, to drill down the point that the president can't just cut stuff whenever he feels like it. It's not only unconstitutional and determined so by the Supreme Court, it would also make our president a king. But then again, maybe Trump wants that.
I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it.
So what was Congress to do with President Nixon abusing his authority? Well, they passed the Impoundment Control Act in 1974 to set clear guidelines. As the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities notes, quote, "The Impoundment Control Act does not create new restrictions on presidential authority, but rather specifies how a president can request that Congress change the law on an expedited basis to spend less than Congress initially provided. It establishes a formal process whereby the president submits a request to Congress to rescind funding, and Congress can choose how much, if any, of the president's proposed rescission to accept. If Congress does not approve legislation that enacts the rescission within 45 days of the request, then the president must spend the funds. And see, this is exactly what Rand Paul wants to do. Since the cuts that DOGE is making is unconstitutional, albeit desired by budget hawks like himself, then it's time to use rescission.
What?
This would literally codify DOGE cuts into law. All Trump has to do is submit his request to Congress, which is controlled by Republicans, 218 to 215 in the House and 53 to 47 in the Senate. So while Republicans are in control, it's still only by a slim margin. But that's okay, because rescission is filibuster-proof. It doesn't need the usual 60 votes to pass, just a simple majority of 51. Now, whether he can get that simple majority is yet to be determined. Not every Republican is pleased with Trump's DOGE cuts. He may have to lean on VP Vance to cast a tie-breaking vote like he did with his cabinet picks. Rand Paul recently pitched Elon Musk on this rescission idea in a meeting with other Republican senators. Apparently, Musk was elated by the idea that only 51 senators were needed. In fact, Senator Josh Hawley, who was in the meeting, said, quote, "I think he didn't realize it could be done at 51. Who would have thunk that Musk didn't know everything? It's almost like the man running the country has no idea how it works. Now, Rand Paul said no specific figures were discussed, but he would like to see a $500 billion cut. That seems like a lot of money, but even if that is accomplished, that is still less than 1.5% of our $36 trillion debt. Will it happen, though? Who knows in this idiocracy-level political world we live in called reality. If I was a betting woman, I wouldn't put my money on it. Congress never met a dollar they didn't like to spend. Politicians run after wasteful spending faster than RFK Jr. runs after his lust demons. Unfortunately, for the American people, every dollar we go into debt is another step closer to tyranny. I'm going to leave you with the words of a very wise founding father, Thomas Jefferson. He said, quote, "I'm not among those who fear the people. They, and not the rich, are our dependents for continued freedom. And to preserve their independence, we must not let our rulers load us with perpetual debt." Now that you know where we've been, find out where we're going. Tune in to Ladies Love Politics, where you can stay informed without going insane.